guys, Caleb here, back again with more Red Knot. It's Christmas time, so we are reading the Christmassy book. Maybe. It takes place in winter, okay, so yeah, that's what we're doing. We are reading Sugar Cookie Murder by Joanne Fluke, New York Times best-selling author. This is a terrific series. I love a mystery. A Hannah Swenson holiday mystery with recipes. So if you ever wanted to know how to make a sugar cookie murder, I suppose this book will teach you. There is nothing at all interesting about this cover, except that it's got a little sugar cookie snowman tucked to the bottom right side of it, and he's cute. He's got a little red top hat on. And his expression's like, oh no! His little scarf is blowing in the non-existent wind. And the only thing really clever is that his little red buttons are actually made out of little skulls. So somebody found like skull candy somewhere at a Halloween shop, I guess, and saved them for Christmas. But otherwise, it is just a bland, blank cover. That is all. When it comes to holidays, Minnesotans rise to the occasion. And the little town of Lake Eden, are you fucking serious? Is baking up a storm with Hannah Swenson leading the way. The actual Christmas buffet is the final test of the recipes Hannah has collected for the Lake Eden Holiday Buffet Cookbook. The recently divorced Martin Dubinsky arrives at the buffet with his new Vegas showgirl wife all wrapped up in glitter and fur. His ex-wife, however, seems as cool and as chilled eggnog. And then Hannah's mother's antique Christmas cake knife disappears. Its discovery is the decollage of the new and now late Miss Dubinsky puts the festivities on ice. Decollage? Don't know that word. With everyone stranded at the community center by a blizzard, of course, why not? Hannah puts her investigative skills to the test, using the ingredients at hand, half the town of Lake Eden, and a killer. Now, as the snowdrifts get higher, it's up to Hannah to dig out all the clues and make sure that this white Christmas doesn't bring any more deadly tidings. Ellipses. Well, at least it didn't go in the direction I thought it was going to go and make a reference to it becoming a red and bloody Christmas. Wacky and delightful characters plus tempting recipes from appetizers to desserts make this light-hearted offering sure to please the plate of any cozy fan. Publishers Weekly. Fluke's talent for spinning a mesmerizing tale carries on in the 6th book, and its holiday recipes are an added treat for readers. Times News Record. A clever and delicious treat for Christmas. Mystery Lovers Bookshop News. Includes over 50 original recipes for you to try. And that's about it. Oh, that's cute. The chapters have a little candy cane and a Christmas tree. I'm not sure if these are like edibles or ornaments, but they're cute and they're on, with the chapter heading. It was a meatball, a really big meatball, and it was rolling out of her closet. What the hell? It stopped a few feet from the end of the bed, and that was when she noticed its eyes and its face. Okay. The eyes stared at her in abject disappointment, and 2 tears of gravy. What? And 2 tears of gravy rolled down its fat, bumpy cheeks. It looked so miserable Hannah wanted to reach out and give it a hug. You forgot me, the meatball said, and I'm an entree. And from what I hear, your entrees aren't that good. Yes, they are. I'm doing my best. Is she having some kind of acid dream? What the hell? What in the world is going on? I'm doing my best not to take this as a personal insult, the meatball interrupted her. But you know, I'm a lot more delicious than your mother's Hawaiian pot roast. What really makes me mad is that you left me out, but put in 4 of your sister Andrea's Jello molds. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to jump a can of fruit in some Jello. If you want her name in the cookbook, you ought to teach her to cook. What was the meatball talking about? No ordinary mortal could teach Andrea to cook. Her sister was firmly entrenched among the ranks of the culinary impaired. I would be included in that. Hannah sat bolt upright in bed, prepared to give the Swedish treat a piece of her mind. But there was no longer a round brown entree with the delectable scent of mushrooms and beef, positioned in front of her closet or at the foot of her bed, with the exception of Moishi, who was curled up at her feet sleeping peacefully. She was alone. Apparently she was having an acid trip. It's like that weird hallucination in young Sherlock Holmes, where like food just basically kills itself by jumping into Watson's mouth and making him eat them. Hannah blinked several times, and then the truth of the situation dawned. She'd been dreaming. Well, I hope you're dreaming and not actually talking to a meatball. The talking meatball had retreated into whatever corner of her mind had created it, but the message it had delivered remained. Hannah had goofed big time. She'd forgotten to include Edna Ferguson's recipe for not-so-Swedish meatballs in the packet to be tested at tonight's potluck dinner. Uh-oh. Hannah groaned, feeling around under the bed for her slippers. When she'd wiggled her feet inside the fake fur lining, she patted the mattress to wake the orange and white tomcat who'd been her roommate for the past year and a half. Well, why would you bother the cat? He's happy asleep. Come on, I don't know how to say this. Moishi. Moishe? Moishe. Time to wake up and smell the kitty crunchies. Moishi opened one yellow eye and regarded her balefully. Then the phrase kitty crunchies must have registered in his feline brain. Well, he's half asleep, too, because he jumped off the bed with an athletic grace that Hannah could only envy, and padded down the hallway at her side as she headed for the kitchen. Once Moishi had been fed and watered, and she poured herself a cup of strong coffee, Hannah sat down at the kitchen table that was on the cusp of becoming an antique, and considered the problem of Edna Ferguson's meatballs. Since the whole thing was her fault for forgetting to include them, she'd have to find time to test them herself. One thing for sure, Edna wouldn't be the soul of understanding if she couldn't find her favorite recipe in the cookbook. I think instead of putting the there, maybe an A wouldn't be a soul of understanding. But I guess that works. It's just a bit difficult to understand. Hannah glanced down at her coffee mug, empty, and she didn't even remember drinking it. Yeah, I was going to say, how did you drink it that fast? If she showered and dressed right now, before she was fully awake, the lure of a second mug of coffee would make her hurry. Before the second hand on her apple-shaped wall clock had made 12 complete revolutions, Hannah was back in the kitchen. Instead of a robe, she was wearing jeans and a dark green pullover sweater. Her feet were encased in fur-lined moose-hide boots to stave off the chill of the first cold week in December, and her towel-dried hair was already springing up into a riot of red curls. Coffee, Hannah breathed, pouring a mug, inhaling the fragrance, and taking the first steaming sip. I guess she likes it black. Is almost as good as... But before she could decide exactly what it was almost as good as, the phone rang. "Mother!" Hannah muttered in the same tone she used when she stubbed her toe. But she reached for the phone. "Okay." To let the answering machine get it would only delay the inevitable. Dolores Swenson was relentless. If she wanted to talk to her eldest daughter, she'd keep on calling until she was successful. "Good morning, Mother." Hannah forced a cheery note into her voice and sank down in a chair. Conversations with Dolores had been known to last as long as an hour. "Good morning, dear. You sound like you got up on the right side of the bed," Dolores replied, matching Hannah's cheery tone and raising her a cliché. "I know this Christmas potluck has been a lot of work for you, and I called to see if there was anything I could do to help." Warning bells went off in Hannah's head. When Dolores tried to be helpful, she had an ulterior motive. "That's nice of you, Mother, but I think I've got everything covered." "I thought so. You're so organized, dear. Did I tell you that Luann found an antique silver cake knife with a provenance that dates back to the Regency period?" "No, you didn't." Hannah sighed, getting up to pour more coffee, and stretching out the phone cord to within an inch of its life. Luann Hanks was Dolores and Carrie's assistant at Granny's attic, the antique store they'd opened right next to Hannah's bakery, and she was a genius at finding valuable antiques at estate auctions. "I thought you might want to use it tonight. It has a lovely old-fashioned Christmas tree on the handle." "Didn't you say it was Regency?" "That's right, dear. But I didn't think they had Christmas trees in Regency England." "They didn't. But don't forget that the Regent's family was German, and since this particular knife was used at court, it's decorated with a German Christmas tree." "There's a difference between Christmas trees?" "I'd love to use it," Hannah said. "It'll fit in perfectly." "That's what I thought. When I showed it to Winthrop last night, he thought it would be appropriate to cut a cake from the period." Hannah frowned at the mention of her mother's significant other. She had no basis in fact, but she had the inkling that Winnie, as her niece Tracy called him, wasn't precisely on the level. She'd asked Norman Rhodes, Carrie's son, and the man she occasionally dated, to check Winthrop out on the internet. Norman had done it, but he hadn't found anything shady about the British lord who was visiting Lake Eden for a lark. Are we using British lord sarcastically, or is he actually... Well, it's not capitalized, so I guess maybe she is. I don't know. Hannah pulled herself back to the problem at hand. "I think using the cake knife is a great idea, but as far as I know, no one is bringing a cake made from a Regency recipe." "Yes, they are, dear. You're forgetting about Lady Hermione's chocolate sunshine cake." "Lady Hermione?" Hannah's voice reached a high note that would have shocked the Jordan High choir director who'd assigned her to the second alto section. "Who's Lady Hermione? You know that's my original recipe." "Of course I do. But there's a slight problem, dear. You see, the knife is very valuable. I didn't want to let just anyone use it, so I fibbed a bit." "What's a bit?" "I said that Lady Hermione's chocolate sunshine cake originated a lot earlier. If it'll make 'em happy, is there any harm in letting Winthrop think the recipe's been in our family for hundreds of years?" See, I'm glad my own mother wasn't like this, 'cause I think I would have killed her." Hannah sighed. She didn't like lying, even when it was for the good cause. "Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. It's difficult for me to tell any kind of lie, even if it's for the betterment of everybody." And Winthrop's happiness wasn't high on her list of good causes. "Your fib won't work, Mother. My cake uses frozen orange juice concentrate, and that certainly wasn't around back then." "That's all right. Winthrop won't notice. And on the off chance he does, I'll say the original recipe called for orange marmalade." Dolores gave a sigh, and when she spoke again, her voice held a quaver? I think that's supposed to be quaver rather than quiver, because it has an A in it where I would assume the I would go. "That's all right, isn't it?" Hannah thought about it for a second or two, and then she caved. That little quaver in her mother's voice always got to her. "All right, Mother." Why would you call her mother? Why wouldn't you say mom? I won't lie if Winthrop asks me straight out. But as long as he doesn't, I'll play along. Thank you, dear. And now I better rush. Carrie's picking me up in 10 minutes, and I still have to do my makeup. Why didn't you do your makeup while on the phone? Hannah said her goodbyes and hung up, but the moment she placed the phone back in the cradle, it rang again. Mother, why she would say that instead of Mom, I don't know, she muttered, grabbing for the phone. Dolores often called back immediately if she'd forgotten to say anything she felt was important. What is it, Mother? Hannah asked, not bothering with a greeting. She had to leave her condo soon, or she'd be late for work. I'm not your mother, a male voice replied, chuckling slightly. It's Mike. Hannah sat down in her chair with a thunk. Hearing Mike Kingston's voice always made her knees turn weak, and her heart beat faster. Ah, the love interest. But she took a deep breath and tried to ignore it. I called to find out who's testing my pâté tonight. Hannah took another deep breath and fought her urge to cave in without a whimper. Tall, rugged, and more handsome than any man had a right to be. Mike wasn't easy to deny. I can't tell you. You know the rules. The recipe tester has to remain anonymous. Otherwise there could be hard feelings. But I really need to know. I might have forgotten to put something in the recipe. What? Hannah asked. She remembered Mike's recipe, and there were only 2 ingredients. I need to make sure I wrote down horseradish sauce and not just horseradish. If the tester uses straight horseradish, it'll be too spicy for some people. No problem, Mike. Hannah's response was immediate. You specified horseradish sauce. How do you know unless you're testing it? Hannah moaned softly under her breath. Mike was the head detective at the Winnetka County Sheriff's Department. It doesn't take a brain scientist to figure this out. Also, that doesn't mean she's testing it. What if maybe she just happened to caught a glimpse of it or something while she's passing it to whoever is testing it? I don't fucking know. And he'd pick up on her blunder right away. I can't confirm or deny that. Of course you can't, but thanks for putting my mind at ease about the horseradish sauce. How about tonight? Do you want me to pick you up? I think it'd be better if we met at the community center. I'm going to leave work around 3, head home to get dressed and pick up the food I'm bringing, and get there early to make sure Edna has all the help she needs in the kitchen. Okay, I'll see you there. Was that a sigh of relief she just heard in Mike's voice? You sound happy that you don't have to pick me up. You sound like rather upset that he may have sighed and been relieved by it. It's not that. I'd pick you up if you needed me. It's just that, Shauna Lee asked me if I'd take her to the party. Hannah closed her eyes and counted to 10. Shauna Lee Quinn had been Mike's secretary in Minneapolis, and he'd convinced her to follow him to Lake Eden. She'd landed a job at the Winnetka, damn it, I can't say this word now. Winnetka Sheriff's Department, and Mike had found her an apartment in the complex where he lived. He insisted that they were just friends, and Hannah had done her best not to be jealous. But it was difficult to stave off the green-eyed monster when the Southern beauty who'd been crowned Miss Atlanta called Mike every time her car wouldn't start. Hannah, is something wrong? Hannah took a deep breath and forced herself to be calm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we had a date. We do. I'm just giving Shauna Lee a lift. Shauna Lee a lift there. Why wouldn't he just call her Shauna? That's all. She's meeting someone, and she's got her own way home. Oh, well, okay, Hannah said, hoping that the person Shauna Lee was meeting would show up and she wouldn't turn out to be a third wheel on their date. If she is, just drop her off at her house and then go on your date. Or ask somebody else to take her home. Or she can get a cab. You're really a nice person, Hannah. What's brought that on? Hannah asked, and immediately wished she hadn't. She'd broken one of her mother's cardinal rules. If a man compliments you, don't argue with him. Just smile and say thank you. Shauna Lee told me you accepted her brownie recipe for the cookbook. That's right. The person who tested it thought her brownies were really good. But you had the power to veto it, and you didn't. Hannah hoped Mike could never find out how close she'd come to relegating Shauna Lee's recipe to the circular file as the author of the Lake Eden Potluck Cookbook and the head of the cookbook committee. Because you would have something like that? I mean, I'm not like a big-time baker or anything. I just make food so I can eat it to live. Maybe such things exist? I don't know. Hannah had the power to accept or reject as she saw fit. The only thing that had stopped her in Shauna Lee's case was the fear that someone might find out and accuse her of being petty, which very well might be. Of course, I didn't use my veto. Why would I veto a perfectly good recipe? Mike chuckled, and Hannah felt her toes tingle. It was an intimate chuckle, one that should be heard up close and personal, not transmitted over telephone wires. I'm not going to say anything about that because, honestly, I wouldn't really know because I'm just not wired like that, but I've never heard anybody chuckle intimately. So I don't know if that's a thing or if it would be sexy or not. I guess it would depend on the situation. Have you tasted those brownies yet? Not yet. Hannah's eyebrows began to knit, but stopped in a mid-frown. The magazine she'd paged through in the supermarket line had warned that frowns caused wrinkles in women over 30. And she'd passed the 3-decade mark a couple of months ago. How big whoop the fucking do? You're getting older. You're going to look old because you're getting older. They're the best brownies I've ever tasted, and I've tasted a lot. I told Shauna Lee she should call them hot brownies. Hot brownies? Yeah, hot as in terrific, not hot from the stove. Know what I mean? I get it. In that case, maybe you should say delicious. Anyway, they're definitely hot. And if I work it just right, I might be able to talk her into letting you add them to your menu, especially if you call them Shauna Lee's brownies. What do you think about that? Impressive, Hannah said, envisioning the anvil she'd like to impress on top of Mike's head. Bake Shauna Lee's brownies for her shop? Not a chance. 5 minutes later, Hannah was still sitting at her kitchen table, staring down into her half-filled and rapidly cooling coffee mug. Hot brownies. The best Mike had ever tasted. The slow burn she started to do when Mike had first uttered those words had grown into a sizable conflagration. If Mike liked hot brownies so much, she'd give him hot brownies. They wouldn't be hot as in terrific, and they wouldn't be hot from the stove. Her brownies would be hot as in 5-alarm chili hot, and she could hardly wait to hear Mike yowl when he bit into one. Jealous! Also, I was thinking that, I'm like, she should totally do a recipe where she actually puts, peppers and shit in those brownies. I'd try 'em. Chapter 2. Hi, Hannah, Lisa Herman called out as she came in the back door at the cookie jar. It's really snowing out there. I had to brush off the whole top of the... What's that? Hannah glanced up at her young partner and started to laugh. Lisa looked absolutely horrified at the sight of the box of brownie mix Hannah had just upended into her bowl. It's brownie mix. I can see that, but why are you using it? Mike called me this morning and he told me all about Shauna Lee Quinn's brownies. He said they were hot, as in terrific. I thought about it after I hung up and decided I should make him some of my hot brownies. Okay, but I still don't understand why you're using... Lisa stopped speaking as Hannah picked up an open can of diced jalapeno peppers and dumped them into the bowl. I like this woman. She's doing this out of jealousy and spite, but at the same time, I think it's funny as hell. She blinked a couple of times, as if she couldn't believe her eyes, and then she laughed. I get it. Hot brownies. Okay, great, fine, fantastic. I got it from the end of last chapter. You could, just been like, oh, I see, or something like that. Very hot. And I didn't want to waste time and effort baking something that Mike's going to trash 10 seconds after he tastes it. Lisa picked up the empty can and took a sniff. Then she immediately grabbed for a paper towel to dab at the tears that were beginning to run down her cheeks. I've never had jalapenos do that. Of course, I like hot things. One sniff and my eyes are watering. Yes, I can see that. Why are you saying this? Those must be some really potent peppers. Florence said they were. Hannah named the woman who owned the Lake Eden Red Owl Grocery. That is a mouthful. Who would ever name their grocery store that? She told me she put one can in a pot of chili, and it was so hot nobody could eat it. Well, in that case, make another pot and then combine the two. That should make it a little easier. Or only use half of it next time. Lisa hung up her coat, switched from her boots to her shoes, and headed for the sink to wash her hands. Are you going to call Mike and have him come here to taste them? No way. He's armed, you know. I'll just run them out to the sheriff's station and leave them for him. Anonymously? That would be my choice. But he's a good detective. He'd figure out who sent them. I'll just drop them off at the front desk and come straight back here. Sounds like a wise decision, Lisa said, rolling her apron up at the waist and tying it in place by wrapping the strings around her twice. I don't really need to know this. You could just say she tied it around herself. She was petite, and the chef's aprons were designed for someone Hannah's size. Who do you want me to do first? You can check the cake in the cooler. I need to see if the raspberry jello is set. Raspberry jello? Hannah glanced up at Lisa. It was clear from the expression on her face that she was thoroughly mystified. It's Andrea's recipe for jello cake, and it needs 2 different colors of jello. She got it in late, but I promised I'd bake it and test it at the party tonight. So you're going to put it in the cookbook? Hannah sighed deeply. I'll have to include it if it turns out all right. It's a family obligation, you know. I know all about family obligations. I barely managed to keep Dad from submitting his father's catfish bait recipe. He should have done it. I would have put it in. Why? Lisa's mouth dropped open in shock. You're kidding. No, I'm not. Tell him I want it. As far as I'm concerned, every book needs a sprinkling of humor. Even a cookbook, especially a cookbook. All the recipes are so precise. I miss those days when it was a pinch of salt, a smidgen of pepper, and a snippet of parsley. Of course, that was before Fanny Farmer standardized level cooking measurements. I don't even know what the fuck she's referencing there, if anything. So, yeah, I'll just go with it. Lisa turned to Hannah with surprise. I didn't know Fanny Farmer did that, and she was from Minnesota, so was Betty Crocker. Actually, Betty Crocker wasn't from anywhere. It's the name General Mills came up with to market their first cookbook. I don't know why I need to know this. Is it going to be relevant later in the book? But General Mills is based in Minnesota, so I guess you could say both came from here. Good. I love it when important people besides Sinclair Lewis come from Minnesota. Hannah blinked. What Lisa said was a jump in logic. You've got something against Sinclair Lewis? I don't see how, 'cause I don't even know who the fuck that is. Not really. I realize he's important, but his books are depressing. I'm already living depressing. My mother's dead, my dad's got Alzheimer's, and my wedding's off. I can relate, with the exception of getting married. Whoa! Hannah pushed Lisa down on a stool at the workstation and made an end run to the kitchen coffee pot. This was a crisis. What? How? What's this about the wedding? Did you have a fight with Herb? Of course not. I love Herb, and he loves me, and that's not the problem. What is? Hannah filled 2 mugs, put one down in front of Lisa. and sat down on the opposite stool. "It's a matter of timing. Herb and I talked about it last night, and we both agreed to call off the wedding. For good? I mean, you don't have to tell me if it's too personal, but it's not personal," Lisa interrupted her. "And no, it's not off for good. We just decided to wait to get married until everything's settled with Dad." "He's okay, isn't he?" Hannah felt a quick jolt of fear. Lisa adored her father, and she'd given up her college scholarship to stay home and take care of him. "My brother and I just took turns of taking care of Dad while he worked, and then I went to college during the day. Dad's fine. It's just that Marge found a new doctor for him, a really good neurologist, and he was accepted in a new drug testing program. It's some kind of cocktail thing, 3 drugs that work together to boost a brain signaling chemical that improves memory. Dad's all excited about it, but the only thing is, the study starts this coming Monday, and it lasts for 2 months. Herb and I didn't think it was fair for us to get married in the middle of the program, especially since we'll be switching houses and all." "That makes sense," Hannah said, breathing a sigh of relief. "Well, yeah, if he's got Alzheimer's, he might wake up and freak out, because he won't know, where in the hell he is, because it's a different house. I mean, when it came to Dad, sometimes he was there and sometimes he wasn't. He couldn't even remember my birthday, so, yeah." As far as she was concerned, Lisa and Herb made a perfect couple, and Herb's mother, Marge Beesman, Beeseman, was really stepping into the breach. I think you could just say stepping in to help. I've never heard that term before. To help with Lisa's dad. She was giving them her house as a wedding present, and she was moving into Jack Herman's home to become his caretaker. Well, that's awfully nice of her. She doesn't have to do that. And even though Marge was a widow and Jack was a widower, and they used to date in high school, no one in town was saying boo about the living arrangements. Well, if they did, I'd tell them to go fuck themselves, 'cause this lady is being really nice and she doesn't have to. And yeah, I could understand if some people are talking, but at the same time, he's got Alzheimer's, and I don't think they would let her do that unless they felt comfortable with it. So when do you think you'll get married?" Lisa looked down at her engagement ring and gave a little smile. "We're shooting for the middle of February. That's when Dad's test program is over. But instead of a big wedding, we're just going to run down to the courthouse. You could still have a nice little reception and things. When my friend Dixie got married to her high school sweetheart, when Dixie and Will got married, that's what we did, and their wedding present was everybody tossing in the money it took to pay for their marriage certificate, and the preacher to come up and, make them husband and wife. We stood in front of the courthouse, and it was really nice. And then we went into the park, and we grilled some hamburgers. Dixie brought a boombox, and we played music on it, and it was really nice. So you could, there's nothing wrong with that. "No fair," Hannah said, getting up to stash her crock full of meatballs in the cooler, and making a mental note to take it down to the community center at noon, and let it cook until time for the party. "What's not fair? Your dad told me he was looking forward to walking you down the aisle, and Tracy's all excited about being your flower girl. Well, you can still have that shit. Not only that, your bridesmaids already ordered their dresses." "I know." Lisa looked worried. "Herb and I talked about that, and we decided we'd pay everybody back. It's the right thing to do." "No, it's not." "Well, actually, yes, it is, if they feel that way. But at the same time, you can still dress up and go to the courthouse and do this crap. We didn't have no flower girl or anything, but we all got together and made sure we were wearing our best. And we went and we paid the fee. We waited on the preacher to show up, and then got married in front of the courthouse. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. We had a great time, and everybody was happy. You don't need a big what to do. You can still do all of this. Have them wear their dresses. have a little girl show up with, like, a basket full of flower petals and throw that shit around. It's fine. It's not? Hannah shook her head. Nobody would take your money, and that's not the point anyway. Everybody's looking forward to seeing you marry Herb. Why don't you just postpone the wedding until the middle of February? I always wanted to get married on Valentine's Day. Lisa sounded wistful. But it's impossible, Hannah. I want to be with Dad while he's going through the clinical trials, and I don't have time to make all the arrangements. No problem. Just ask Andrea to do everything for you. She loves to plan weddings. But she'll be busy with the new baby. No, she won't. She told me she hired Grandma McCann to come in during the week, just like she did when Tracy was born, and Al gave her 3 months maternity leave. Andrea's going to have nothing but time on her hands, and she'll be so bored. You'll be doing her a favor. Do you think so? Lisa's smile was pure golden. I think so. It would be just wonderful if all we had to do was show up for the ceremony. That's my idea of a perfect wedding, but are you sure Andrea would be willing to take on a big job like that? Wild horses couldn't stop her. Okay, I just want to say something. If you're going to get married and you have all this shit planned anyway, why not just change the date and leave everything the same? What's the big deal here? That wouldn't be all that difficult. Everybody's got their dresses. We already know who's going to be the flower kid. Probably who's going to be the ring bearer, the best man, the maid of honor, or maiden of honor, depending. Matron, I mean. If you have all this planned, just shuffle the date. That's all you have to do, because in theory you already have this set up. Or are you just in the middle of planning the wedding? Because you haven't really said, and so I'm assuming, because I have to assume, that all this is already done. Wild horses couldn't stop her, Hannah said. I'll call her just as soon as we're through here. Is Andrea coming to the party tonight? I hope so. She's got an appointment with Doc Knight this morning, and she's going to try to talk him into letting her go. Why couldn't she? As long as she's careful and she doesn't feel like crap, she should be all right. I've got my fingers crossed for her. She's probably going stir-crazy home with her feet up on pillows. Is she supposed to be like on, home rest while she's pregnant? I'll have a friend who's been that too, through 3 pregnancies. She hates that shit, but she's like, I want my baby, so I do what I'm supposed to. I want to work right up until they rush me off to the delivery room. Wait, you're saying this about your sister's kids? When she gives birth? Or are you saying that's what you want to do about your sister's kids? I don't understand this statement because she's talking about her sister, but then she says, I want to work right up until they rush me off to the delivery room, which would imply she's having kids and not her sister. Oh, wait, Lisa's saying this? Oh, I guess she is. I didn't notice that. I was thinking Hannah was saying this. My bad. Hannah turned to give Lisa a sharp look. Are you trying to tell me something? Of course not. Herb and I aren't even married yet. Why would you assume that just because what she said? Marriage isn't always a prerequisite for parenthood. Maybe not for some people, but it is for me, Lisa said. I'll get that cake and see if the jello's set. Hannah kicked herself mentally as Lisa ducked into the walk-in cooler to retrieve the cake. It was clear that she stepped over the line into an area Lisa didn't want to discuss, and this was her partner's way of changing the subject. I guess some people are still sensitive about that kind of thing. You just said no, we're not married. Well, some people don't care about it. Well, I do. I don't see what there is to get mad about. Maybe it's a little insulting, but you've just cleared it up, so there's whatever. The jello's set, Lisa announced, carrying the cake to the workstation. Do you want me to finish making it for you? That'd be great. The recipe's on the counter. Lisa set down the cake and glanced through the recipe. This sounds really good. It is. Andrea always makes it for Tracy's birthday. It's the one time of year she uses her oven. It must be strange having a sister who doesn't cook. Not really. They were my thoughts exactly, Hannah said with a shrug. She's gotten quite accustomed to being the baker in the family. The baker in the family. Dolores didn't do desserts, and Andrea avoided the oven with passion. The only other member of the family who showed signs of inheriting Grandma Ingrid's love of baking was Hannah's youngest sister, Michelle. She was constantly calling Hannah for recipes to try out on her college roommates. Also, knowing how to cook when you're in college, I'm sure is a plus, especially if you have to move away and live on your own. Lisa stuck some water on to boil and opened the lemon jello packet. When I'm done with this, I'll do the baking for the day. You can concentrate on the recipes you have left to test for tonight. Hannah gave her a grateful smile. Lisa was only 19, but she was more responsible than others who were twice her age. Hannah had never regretted the day, only a little over a year ago, when she'd offered her diminutive assistant a partnership in the cookie jar. That sentence is a little clunky, but I understand what we're trying to say. Once the baking was done and Hannah had returned from her run to the sheriff's station with the brownies from Mike, well, no shit, I know she took them, but I guess thank you for telling, because most books nowadays wouldn't. Lisa and Hannah settled down in the back booth of the coffee shop with fresh mugs of coffee. I guess that's the only thing you can get in a coffee shop. Which, I like coffee, but why not just have like a coffee pot in the back of your store or something? And just make your own coffee. Cheaper. So, what did Mike say when you gave him the brownies? Lisa said. He wasn't there. I just wrote a quick note, put them on his desk, and came straight back here. I wonder what time we should start hiding. Hannah laughed. Not before noon. I checked with Barbara, and she thought he'd be out in the field all morning. If he does come back early and he charges in here, he'll be so bowled over by our decorations he'll forget about being mad. You like 'em? They're even better than last year. I never would have thought to paint Christmas designs on the mirror with glass wax and powdered tempera. It's just an idea I got from a magazine. When you wash it off, it cleans the mirror at the same time. Well, it makes sense. It makes the whole place look fantastic. Hannah glanced up at the silver and gold streamers Lisa had hung from the ceiling, and admired how nicely they fluttered as the ceiling fans whirled softly overhead. She'd even hung mistletoe from the pull chains, a little extra that Hannah hadn't noticed when she'd first seen the decorations. It's a good thing Moishi isn't here. Why? Because he's a cat? Duh. Because mistletoe berries are poisonous for cats. So are poinsettia leaves. I didn't know that. So is this book just going to give me, facts about random shit? If you're a cat owner, you should know this. And if you don't, I recommend you go look online what's okay for your cat to eat and what is not. Most people don't. Christmas is very hard on cats, especially if their people don't know how dangerous it is. Sue told me Dr. Bob had 3 feline patients last Christmas who almost died from eating tinsel. Now Izzy did do that, but it would get caught on her, and before we could get it off, she'd already ate it. It gets tangled up in their insides and causes all sorts of problems. Izzy never ate enough for that to happen. Lisa just shook her head. Maybe it's a good thing Herb wants us to get a puppy. Not necessarily. Poinsettias and mistletoe are poisonous for dogs, too. And tinsel's not good either. And then there are the glass balls that people use to decorate trees. A dog might bat at them and break them? Well, a cat can, too. Yes, and swallow some of the pieces. And then there's chocolate. A lot of people leave a box of chocolates out on a coffee table for guests. That's perfect dog height. And too much chocolate can kill a dog. Also can kill cats, just so you know. That's a real pity. Okay, I know we haven't got to the mystery yet, but Why are you just fact-giving? That's one thing I will say that really upsets me about this book, is all this random fact-giving. Like, I don't need to know Betty Crocker isn't a real person, that she was made up by a company in Minnesota. I'm sure these tips about pets help, but unless they somehow involve the mystery, I don't need them. You're just using filler until the mystery shows up. Well, this is stuff people would normally talk about, yes, but if it's not stuff important to your book, then it's not stuff that needs to go into your book. The only things you really put in your book are things that either add to the characters, like personality, maybe talking about their hobbies once, maybe twice. Everything else needs to be necessary. If it's just normal, everyday things, you skip over it. You talk about it in a paragraph or so. And while they hung decorations, they talked about Moishi and how he almost got sick on mistletoe that one time and had to take him to the vet, where they found out mistletoe was poisonous to cats. And so then they never had mistletoe again, unless, pets weren't around. That's an easier way to do that, and it took a paragraph, maybe two. That's a real pity. Lisa sounded very sympathetic. She sounded it, but definitely didn't feel it. At least if we eat too much chocolate, all we get is hyperactive, and that reminds me. No, it raises your blood sugar. If your blood sugar is raised by too much, or even lowered by too much, your body can freak the fuck out and make you go into a coma. Even kill you. Diabetic or not, be careful with that shit. And that reminds me, we better stoke up? Is that supposed to be stock, but she spelled it stoke? That reminds me, we better stoke up on the chocolate tonight, because we have to be on our toes. Stoke? Here's the thing. I'm going to mention this because I'm not sure if that's what she's trying to do or not. I think I've talked about how to write accents on the show before, and if I haven't, well, you're going to get the lecture now. When you're writing accents, don't go Mark Twain into this shit. Mark Twain disregarded most grammar rules, and he wrote as people in the South back then would talk. And the only way I could possibly understand anything that those books said was if I read it aloud to myself and slowly sounded everything out. The best thing to do is to write normally and pick a quirk for that person to say as their accent to get it across. My creative writing teacher in college, he wrote a story that was based on things that were really going on at the time. Because both of these people were Southern. The antagonist especially, he had a quirk where he would elongate vowels. Specifically the letter E. So anytime he said an E in a word, and it was very pronounced, he would elongate it. So there would be extra E's in sentences where the E was a prominent vowel sound in that word. Another way to do it, and it'd be more subtle but still makes sense, is just simply follow the like that joke about the Mountings. Just put IN apostrophe and leave it on any ing word. Because Southerners talk like that. I'm sure if you've listened to the show long enough, you've heard me say, instead of good morning, even when the story says good morning, I say good morning. I'm not thinking, that's just what I do because that's how we talk. I say good morning, I say reckon, I say can't and ain't. I say those words. A $10 bill doesn't sound like a $10 bill. Because that's not how I talk. The idea here is that we talk different, but it's not so different that you can't understand. It just takes a little doing. and a little sprinkling of this and that. Not all over the place, just maybe dropping the G, or maybe using 10 and 10. 10 is what I would use to cook pizza and things. Tin foil. A 10 is what I would use to pay for my groceries. 10 is what I use to make baked potatoes in the oven. A 10 is how much it costs for a ticket to go see a movie at the drive-in with 2 people. See, it can be something as simple as that, and you can even spell it out like that, with a little accent or something every time it comes up, because that's a difference of pronunciation between the North and the South of money. It can be something as simple as that. So the reason why I bring it up is because that's what she might be doing, but it's not italicized or anything, and I've never heard stoke up. I've always heard stock up. Martin Dubinsky got married in Vegas, and he's bringing his new wife to the Christmas party. Uh-oh. Hannah groaned. Shirley submitted her poppy seed cake recipe for the cookbook, and it's being tested tonight. That's what I mean. The ex-wife and the new wife. It's straight out of a soap. Especially since Shirley wants Martin back. Well, I was going to say, I don't see what she'd have a problem with, as long as they stay. Oh, okay, never mind. She does? Hannah was surprised. I think so, at least that's what I heard. I wish I had known that before, now I feel really guilty about going out with Martin. I wouldn't? That's his ex. If she likes him, then she should try to get him back before he gets attached. But if he's got a girlfriend already, or a wife, then tough luck. You went out with Martin? Lisa looked positively mystified. Why did you do that? Mother. Why not just say Mom? But it was only once. Tell me what you know about Martin's new wife, if you know anything. Why would anybody know about this guy's wife except that they got married in Vegas? How would you all even know that? Did he call home or something? Well, Lisa paused to take a fortifying sip of coffee. She's a Las Vegas dancer named Brandy Wynn. Get it? No. Her name is Brandy, an alternate spelling of brandy, and what looks like Wynn. W-Y-E-N. I don't get it. Brandy wine. Oh. Okay, I do now that you spelled it out for me. I didn't realize Wynn was supposed to be pronounced like wine. That's why I was lost. I was like, I don't get it. How did Martin meet her? I don't know for sure, but what I heard was he married her just 5 hours after he flew to Las Vegas for a conference. That doesn't bode well. What else? Before Martin and Brandy flew back here, he took her to a furrier and bought her a $20,000 coat so she wouldn't be cold. Hannah groaned again, envisioning the old cloth coat Shirley had worn for the past 3 years, because she hadn't been able to afford a new one. So wait, they got divorced, but she didn't get anything out of it? Was he like a wealthy businessman? Also, if she couldn't afford one, why didn't somebody just give her one, or buy her one, or take her shopping, and be like, look, you need it, so shut up and take it. Do you think there'll be fireworks at the party tonight? I don't know why, but okay. It's a pretty safe bet, especially since there's another woman in the picture. Another woman? Hannah was mystified that even... Oh, fireworks as in a fight. I was thinking, in the middle of December? You're going to shoot off fireworks? Well, I'm like, I guess you can. I don't know why you really would. And then I'm like, oh, I'm stupid. That's another way to say that there'll be a fight. Hannah was mystified that even one woman would be attracted to Martin, much less 3. He was a nice enough man, but her date with him had been boredom personified. Why he'd thought she'd be interested in discussing the newest tax laws was beyond her. Well, I will have to say I don't know. Maybe he wasn't into you, so That was his way of trying to get you to not come back for a second date. I stopped in to see Janice Cox at Kitty Corner after I dropped Dad off at the senior center, Lisa explained. She went to school with Martin's secretary, Lauren, do I pronounce that as a J or a G? Georgeson. I'm going to say it's Georgeson. Jorgensen. Janice and Laura didn't exactly confide in her, but she was pretty sure that Laura was in love with Martin. Oh boy. Hannah breathed, almost wishing that she had gone on for her doctorate and was now teaching in a rarefied academy atmosphere that was hundreds of miles away from what would probably happen when Laura and Shirley met Martin and Brandy. I guess it's a good thing that I said Lauren and her name's Laura, that Laura has an accounting class at the junior college tonight. Not anymore. Janice said Laura's class was canceled and she's going to be at the party to make sure that whoever tested her smothered chicken did a good job. Hannah just shook her head. It was a disaster in the making, perhaps even another Titanic on a slightly smaller scale. In fact, on a non-existent scale, because Titanic was a disaster. This is just 3 people in and over a man. Not even in the same league, lady. Not even close. At least we can have one thing settled before the crockery starts flying. Hannah stood up and headed for the phone by the cash register. I'm going to call Andrea and ask her if she'll handle your wedding arrangements. Tell her she can have complete control of everything. I'll go along with whatever she wants to do. That'll sweeten the pot. Hannah started to grin as she punched in the number. If I know Andrea, she won't be able to resist. Andrea sounded chipper when she answered the phone. Do we really have to go through this? Is this really important to the plot? Hi, Hannah. How did you know it was me? I just got a new cell phone with built-in caller ID. It's a very important tool for a real estate professional. No doubt, Hannah said, grinning a little. Andrea always had state-of-the-art electronics. And she always said she needed it because she was a real estate agent. I called to tell you that Herb and Lisa have postponed their wedding until Valentine's Day. That's too bad. Hang on a second, will you? Hannah hung on and waited for several seconds. Then Andrea came on the line again. Sorry about that. So why are they postponing the wedding? Jack Herman's been accepted in a test program for a new Alzheimer's drug. Lisa and Herb wanted to wait until the trials are over. That makes sense. So why did you call me? Lisa needs to spend all her free time with her dad, and she won't have time to arrange the wedding. Which again, if all of this shit was already arranged, why not just move it to the date and keep everything the same? She loved it if someone else would take charge, and I thought maybe you might. Hold on a second. Hannah put down the phone and motioned to Lisa. I think I hear someone knocking at the back door. Can you go let them in? Sure. Why not just say, suddenly I was interrupted by a knock on the door, and so I told my sister to hang on a minute. Also, why would you have her be like, wait a minute, and then come back, and then you say, wait a minute? Why not just have this conversation until you hear the knocking on the door, then just have her say, the main character say, wait a minute, and then tell whatever. It would just be better. More coherent and easy to follow. And less pointless. Sorry, Andrea. Hannah directed her attention back to the phone. Someone's at the back door, and Lisa went to let them in. It's probably Mother or Carrie. No, it's not. How do you know? Because it's me. What are you talking about? Hannah was thoroughly confused, especially because her phone had suddenly developed a strange new echo. Turn around, Hannah, and Lisa just let me in, and I'm standing right behind you. Okay. That's not really all that surprising. I don't know why the author thought that would be a great turn of events. It'd just be like, oh, okay, well, I'll talk to you once you get in here. Bye. Hangs up phone. New chapter. Chapter 3. Hannah whirled around and practically bumped into her hugely pregnant sister. Hugely pregnant? Wouldn't you say very pregnant? Andrea was standing there, grinning, her cell phone to her ear, despite the fact that she was almost as big around as she was tall. Andrea still managed to look glamorous. She'd arranged her shining blonde hair in an elaborate twist. Her makeup was perfect, of course it is, and she draped a forest green cashmere scarf over her fawn-colored coat, so artfully she could have been the cover model for a maternity fashion magazine. You can hang up now, Hannah, Andrea said. Right. Hannah hung up the phone and hurried to take her sister's arm. Come with me. You better sit down. I'll get another chair so you can put your feet up. I don't need to put my feet up. Doc Knight lifted every single one of my restrictions and gave me the green light to resume normal activities. Hannah glanced at Lisa, who looked every bit as shocked as she did. But I thought he told you to take it easy until the baby was born. He did. But that was then, and this is now. When he tested me this morning, he said he can't wait much longer for me to go into labor. I'm overdue. Okay. What does that mean? Hannah asked. What do you mean, what does that mean? I think you should know what overdue means. It means I should have delivered last week, or maybe even the week before. Doc says I'm getting too big, and that's not good for the baby. Andrea shrugged out of her coat, handed it to Hannah, and pointed at the middle of her wine-red maternity dress. See? Hannah's eyes widened. She'd seen Andrea at the beginning of the week, but now it looked as if her normally petite sister had swallowed a large beach ball. Well, that's kind of what happens when you're pregnant. You get bigger. Doc's given me until next Friday, Andrea went on. If I don't have the baby by then, he'll put me in the hospital and speed things up. How's he going to do that? Lisa asked. It's called induce. For example, Caleb, which is moi, was an induced baby. You don't want to know. As a matter of fact, I don't want to know, so I didn't ask. I'm just hoping that if I move around enough, the baby will decide it's time to get born. Why didn't you ask and be like, well, let's schedule an appointment for the induced pregnancy? Why didn't you even ask? You're the one who's supposed to give birth to a baby. You should know about this shit, and he should explain it to you anyway. That's a shit doctor. Horseback riding, Lisa suggested. What? Hannah turned to her with a puzzled frown. That's what my mother used to do. If she went past her due date, she just went out to my grandfather's farm and went for a ride. She said that always did the trick. Hannah laughed and shook her head. Thanks for telling us, but I don't think this is the time for Andrea to hone her equestrian skills. That's right, especially since the one time Bill took me riding I fell off. I'd much rather drive around town. But first I need coffee. I haven't had a good cup of coffee for weeks. And then I need some chocolate to give me energy. After that, I want you to give me something to do. Okay, I like chocolate just as much as the next person, but there are other kinds of sweets than chocolate. There's cookies, there's cakes, there's good old-fashioned fruit. Like what? Lisa asked as Hannah went off to get the coffee and cookies. Like, what's up to you? What? Like, ellipses, that's up to you. Why put the like there? Just say, that's up to you. But there's absolutely nothing for me to do at home. Grandma McCann was just in to clean and get the nursery all ready. How about decorating for Christmas? Hannah suggested. Once you have the baby, you might be too busy to put up the tree and everything. It's already up and the house is all decorated. Lucy Dunwhite organized the whole thing, with a couple of other kindergarten mothers, and we had a party at my house. They did everything and the kids helped them. All I had to do was supervise from the couch." "That's nice," Hannah said, getting a mug and a napkin containing 2 twin chocolate delights in front of her sister. "So I had absolutely nothing to do, and I thought that since tonight's the Christmas party, you might have a last-minute recipe you don't have time to test. I need to stay busy." "Thanks, Andrea, but I think we've got it covered." Hannah gave Lisa a warning glance that was meant to remind her that Andrea was among the ranks of the cuisine challenged. Lisa just smiled, ignoring Hannah completely. "Hannah's right. We've got everything under control here, but I ran into Edna this morning, and there's something she really needs for the party." "Really?" Andrea took a sip of coffee and swallowed with obvious pleasure. "Why is your coffee so much better than mine?" Because somebody else made it for you? I don't know. Why don't you ask her what she does to make the coffee? Also, I thought they were at a coffee house. Didn't they say they were at a coffee house and they got coffee? But suddenly now they have coffee in a maker back in the back somewhere, I guess." Hannah just shrugged, batting back the obvious answer. Freshly brewed coffee from freshly ground beans was bound to be better than instant coffee made in a microwave. "I don't know. I've never had instant coffee. But you can buy it pre-ground, if you really wanted to, and then go home and make coffee to your taste. Just add as many scoops as you like. Don't overfill it, and add as much water as you like. Not overfilling it or underfilling it, unless you like some really strong coffee." "So what does Edna need?" Andrea turned to Lisa again. "Whatever it is, I can make it. I'm not a very good cook, but I've got all day to get it right." Hannah came close to groaning out loud. Any dish that Andrea prepared was bound to fail through no fault of its own. "It's not food," Lisa explained. "Edna said people always forget to bring serving spoons, and I promised to find someone who could round them up for her." "I can do that. It's absolutely perfect for me. I'll canvass house to house, and while I'm at it, I'll pass out calendars for Al. He's got a really good one this year. It features 12 of the best homes sold through Lake Eden Realty, one for every month, and I sold 10 of them." "I'm surprised it wasn't all 12, Hannah said, grinning at her sister. "Because all this shit's so interesting. Andrea was so good at talking people into things, she could probably get desert nomads to buy kitty litter." "So what? Shouldn't that be desert nomads to buy water? Why would they buy kitty litter? Because they live in a sandy area and thus kitty litter is sandy?" "You are not funny, ma'am. In fact, I'd say that's borderline racist." "Culturist? I'm not sure." "So, how about Lisa's wedding? Will you take care of the arrangements?" Was there ever any doubt? Andrea turned to Lisa with a laugh. "All you have to do is give me the guest list, and tell me your favorite color, and your favorite flower. You can leave everything else up to me. Thanks, Andrea. This really means a lot to me." "Well, what about the groom? Shouldn't he have a say in the wedding? Why is it all about her?" Lisa finished her coffee and stood up. "I'm going to start decorating those sugar cookies we baked for the party. Call me when it's time, and I'll open." Once Lisa had gone through the swinging door to the kitchen, Andrea leaned across the table. "Also, real fast, why would she go door to door asking for serving spoons? Why wouldn't they just go to the store and get some? Just saying." Once Lisa had gone through the swinging door to the kitchen, Andrea leaned across the table. "If you give me 2 more cookies and a refill of the coffee, I'll tell you what I just heard." "From who?" Who else was talking aside from Andrea? Hannah wasted no time getting what her sister wanted. "Oh, Lisa went through. Okay, Andrea's still here. I don't know why, but I thought Andrea was the one who left." Hannah wasted no time getting what her sister wanted. Andrea always exacted payment for the latest Lake Eden gossip. If it's about Martin Dubinsky's new wife, Lisa already told me. That's old news. If you want a real estate professional like me, you would have heard about it yesterday. Oh, if you were a real estate professional like me, you would have heard about it yesterday. Yes, but do you know about the $20,000 fur coat? 22,000. Andrea corrected her. At least that's the way I heard it. But what I've got to tell you is new news, not old news. Because there's a difference. And it's going to knock your socks off. Okay, what is it? It's about Shauna Lee Quinn. What about her? Hannah took a deep breath and held it, hoping that her sister's gossip didn't include Mike. She's leaving town tonight. You're kidding. Would I kid about something that important? Bill called me from the station to tell me. For some reason. There was a death in the family, and Shauna Lee's going back home to Georgia. Oh. Well, I'm sorry for her loss. Hannah curbed her impulse to cheer at Shauna Lee's impending absence. You're a dick! And did her best to react to the gravity of the situation. I'm sorry for her loss. Who died? Vanessa's husband, whoever that is. And from what Shauna Lee told me, what Shauna Lee told Bill, it wasn't unexpected. Who's Vanessa? Shauna Lee's younger sister. They're less than a year apart, and they were really close growing up. Vanessa's husband was an octogenarian. Hannah's eyes shot up. Shauna Lee was in her middle 20s, and it seemed unlikely that her younger sister would marry a man who was 60 years her senior. Yeah, I was going to say I'm like an octarian. That's what Husho calls his grandparents, because, that's how old they are. Her husband was in his 80s? That's what octarian means. No shit, Sherlock. Shauna Lee told Bill that they'd been married for a little over a year before he died. Hannah didn't comment. It could have been a love match, but the term gold digger came to mind. Well, yeah. She was trying to figure out a polite way to pose the idea when Andrea nodded. I know what you're thinking, and you're right. He was a rich octarian, and he owned a whole string of home improvement stores. Because everybody here has to be something awesome and make a shit ton of money. Vanessa inherited everything, and from what Shauna Lee told Bill, it amounts to a lot of money. How long is Shauna Lee staying? I don't know for sure, but Bill asked her when he gave her the standard form to fill out. Yes? Hannah asked, holding her breath. She hoped it was a good long time. She said she wasn't sure, that she'd been homesick for her sister and her family, and she could hardly wait to go home for Christmas, even under these sad circumstances. She also promised to call him in 2 weeks to let him know whether she'd be coming back to her job or not. Okay, just so you know, even if, for some reason, somebody marries a much older person, that does not always mean that the only thing they're there for is their money. It's possible, but that's not always what it means. I would like, once in a story, to read about a couple that comes together despite people's objections and what it may look like to others. And they really do love each other, and that's the only reason why they came together. It's not because one of them's rich and the other one's poor, or they'll move higher in the social ladder, even if it'll improve one of their situations. They did it genuinely out of love. I mean, that's what makes princess stories, fairy tales so great, is that, like Cinderella, she comes from an abusive family and is pretty much treated as a servant in her own house by her stepmother and her stepsisters. And then one night is all it takes to change her life. She basically marries falls in love with a prince who falls in love with her. And despite sudden adversity, they come together, get married, and she in time becomes queen. And of course, with a fairy tale, it doesn't focus on all the real life shit that would be going on and around, not to take into account that that would be impossible to happen because Cinderella wasn't a princess to start with, depending on which legend you pull the story from. But it can happen. Love is weird. You mean there's a chance she won't come back? Hannah could hardly believe her good fortune. That's what it sounds like to me. Bill has to hold her job for a month. That's a union regulation. But after that, the job can be posted at the sheriff's discretion. And Bill's discretion will be right away. It will be if I have anything to say about it. I feel the same way about Shauna Lee as you do. And her sister sounds like more of the same. I mean, I suppose it's unfair of me to judge, yes, when I've never even met her, but think back to when you were 23. What is that supposed to fucking mean? When I was 23, I couldn't be kind, responsible, and caring? The only thing I cared about was how much sex I got, and I didn't want to settle down, and I just wanted to piss everybody off. What the fuck does that mean? People can be mature and responsible at that age. There's no difference between a 30-year-old could be batshit insane and being an alcoholic asshole who wants to do nothing but party and sleep with men. Dear God, these people are stupid, and I'm getting pissed. I was enjoying this book. Now that I keep going through it, I'm getting upset. Okay, Hannah thought back to her college days, and she remembered the efficiency apartment she'd rented in a crumbling stucco building 6 blocks from campus. She'd fixed it all up with low-cost decorations, and it hadn't seemed to matter that if she took longer than 3 minutes longer than a 3-minute shower, she'd run out of hot water. You were young and you had the whole world ahead of you, right? Not really. I'm pretty much the same place now at 31 that I was when I was 23. The only exception is I don't have my own room anymore. I have my own apartment, and my parents are dead. Izzy's dead. Went through a lot of hell and shit. Still go through a lot of hell and shit over stupid shit. That's about it. Oh, bed bugs happen too. I hate those things. Right. Wrong. And you dated guys your own age, or a little older, right? No, I didn't date anybody because nobody was interested in me, and I could have given a shit less about dating. Hannah shrugged. I would have if they'd asked me. I wouldn't have fucking known who the fuck they were. I'm not gonna go out with somebody I've never met before. Good enough. Anyway, there you are, surrounded by all these good-looking guys your age. Would you have fallen in love with a sick old man in a wheelchair? Maybe. You don't fucking know if I would have or not. I'd have to meet the guy first. Again, yes, it is unlikely, but it's not impossible. I would be okay with them saying all of this crap if they would mention more than a passing glance that it's unlikely, but it's possible. That's all that needs to be said. I understand that you feel for some reason this woman is competition to your man. But if he's not involved with anybody, and he says he's not involved with her, why don't you just be like, hey, I'm into you. If you're single, you want to date me? And if he says no, then just be like, okay, bye, and don't care anymore. There is no reason here to hate this woman, to have a grudge against her. And you've even said she's never really done anything, and she doesn't even have a background to indicate that she's not on the level. You have a bad feeling about her, which I can't take it. It's not worth anything. because you are jealous of her. And so you will tell yourself anything to dislike her because you are jealous of her. Because you think in your head she is after your man, who may or may not be your man. Have you went and asked? This is like you're 15 again, doing high school bullshit. I don't want to read a book about 30-year-olds doing high school shit. I want them to act like intelligent adults. And even if I was reading a book about high school kids, yeah, I expect there to be some unnecessary drama there, but I also expect them to act intelligently to the best of their ability. Hannah did her best to think of a scenario that would fit the situation. She came up blank. What scenario? You just imagine that there's a much older gentleman there who's ill and in a wheelchair. Sure, that wouldn't be something I would personally pick based on appearance, but I don't know, maybe with our personalities, we really click. Maybe it's just as somebody who's demisexual, which is an aspect of asexuality, that's just not something I can understand or get. Because there is a block there, and I just do not focus on appearance. For me, it is all about my emotional relationship to someone else. And if more comes out of that friendship or relationship than just friendship, depending on how well I know that person, I could be game. But for me, I don't see attractiveness based on looks. I can still see somebody and say they're cute, or I think they're very handsome, but sexually attracted to them based on their appearance? No. That is not how I'm wired or I work. Joe does it all the time when we're running around. That guy is hot. I guess so. Don't you think he's hot? Maybe. I suppose he's not ugly. He's not good looking. He's a dude. That's really my feelings about anything. That was a good meal, wasn't it? I guess so. I ate it. I was hungry. I didn't really pay attention to the taste. I thought I turned the page. I didn't. I didn't think so, Andrea said, interpreting Hannah's silence as assent. Vanessa married him for his money. There's no other explanation. Yes, there is. She fell in love with him. Legitimately. That's always an option. Let's just hope she shares all that cash with Shauna Lee, and both of them stay put in Georgia. Well, until I read chapter 3, I was going to recommend this book. I'm not now, because I'm pretty pissed. And the more I think about it, the more I really shouldn't recommend the book, even if there are parts I like about it, because it's just exposition. What mystery have we really done? We've went 3 chapters doing nothing but getting ready for a cooking event. That's all. Nobody's died yet. Nobody's gotten into fights or arguments. Nothing has occurred that would set up this to be a murder mystery. Lisa's getting married, so we heard something about that. Andrea's pregnant, so we heard something about that. Hannah has a cat, so then we learned about Christmas shit. They're interested in cooking, so we learned stuff about people who are or aren't real from Minnesota. And that was really all we did. We did nothing useful, except to waste 3 chapters that we could have used to get from point A to B. What we really should have done was take out all this useless exposition, and you could still have the first chapter the way it is, and you could still even open the second chapter the way it is. But when you do the time skip in chapter 2, have them already at the party setting up, and then we could have had the party for the last half of chapter 2, and then move into chapter 3, where I guess people get pissed off. And at the end of chapter 3, there's a dead body that has been discovered. You know, Monokuma shows up on the intercom and dead body discovery announcement, I can't recommend this book, and you've heard all my complaints already. It's a whole lot of nothing for 3 chapters. And then to fill up more, there are recipes just randomly inserted in between chapters and pages and shit. If they're really that concerned about giving recipes or whatever, that's cool. If you want to include 1 or 2, maybe even 3 per book. But just come out with your own cookbook and say it's Hannah's cookbook or cookbook by Joanne Fluke or some shit. There's no reason to have half your book essentially be a cookbook. If I really wanted to know how to make half these things, put them on your website. Make a cookbook. Make a cooking website. Put a link in here and then I go to it when I have internet access. I was really having fun with it until we just started to get to useless shit. I can't recommend this at all. And I'm disappointed. Because it's like the Hana and Kiki crap. I was really looking forward to it. Because the opening with the meatball thing, I wasn't expecting that. That was funny. And then she's got a cat, and I'm like, oh, I like her already. She's got a cat. Doing cat things. Even though all he did was sleep on the bed and then jump down and eat some cat food. And then she was making the super hot brownie thing for her love interest to eat because she was mad at him. Though now that I think about it, why was she punishing him? Well, I know why she's punishing him, but... And then just the concept of, because it's such a cliche in stories now, of she only married this guy for his money. And then going out of their way to say they would never do that. And that's a lie. You don't know what you would or wouldn't do until you were in a situation like that. Is it likely at 30 years old I'd fall in love with a guy who's in his 60s, even his 80s? No, it's not likely. It's very unlikely that would happen. But not everybody is after people's money. There are just as many people who are a legitimate person in comparison to somebody else who isn't. And I can't stand that. If I can argue with you and make more sense than you do, there's something wrong. So I'm Caleb, and this has been Red Knot. Thank you for listening. Bye!